Dear guys, we are going to continue with overtraining. Overtraining is extremely complex phenomenon. If you want to know more about overtraining, please go to the website of Human Kinetics, Champaign, Illinois. This is the biggest sports science publisher in the world, and they have maybe 2 or 3 books about overtraining. Everybody looking for biomarkers of trainability, biomarkers of aging, biomarkers of overtraining. It would be really nice to have biomarkers of this kind of situations or processes, but the situation is that we do not have. Here you can see the slide of overtraining. So if you do exercise and do recovery, something is wrong because the performance is decreasing over a while. It is not so easy to find out the reason of overtraining. Let's give you an example. So you as a coach doing a fantastic job, and your competitor, let's say a fencer, is doing pretty well. But she got some overweight. Then her boyfriend is telling her, please lose some weight. So she will be on diet. So the training that would be completely beautifully compensated by the athlete, your fencer as an example, would have quite different outcome. So let's see, her daily calorie intake from 2000 calorie would drop to 1000 calorie per day. Would it change the adaptive response of the training? Yes, naturally yes. So the training is good, but your athletes just change the dietary habits. Another example, everything is fine, your performance is beautiful, is increasing, so the resting and loading balance is pretty nice. But your athlete is heartbroken. Would the training effect be differently tolerated by your athlete? Yes. So just heartbroken, which happens quite often actually, would completely change the adaptive response. Problems at the schools, problems in the family would quite differently affect your athletes. So what I would like to point out, that if this kind of situation, pretty long term, it can affect the adaptive response and can lead to overtraining. So overtraining is not always due to the problem of improper loading and resting. It could be from lifestyle. Not so easy to understand the situation, but please do collect as many information, as many is it possible about your athletes, but because this is how you can handle more easily and more properly the situation. So what you can see, as a result of overtraining, the performance is decreasing. I just told you a while ago that as a result of fatigue, performance is decreasing. And I told you, you have to enjoy fatigue in order to have better performance. And here I am telling you, as a result of overtraining, the performance is decreasing. But what I am telling you now, you have to avoid overtraining. Isn't it strange? In case of fatigue, decreased performance is welcomed, and here decreased performance must be avoided. Strange? Yeah, because overtraining is a result of chronic fatigue. In case of fatigue, it's a short-term decreased performance. Here, long-term decreased performance. This is what you have to avoid, because it is so difficult to find a marker of overtraining. We don't have any good one. You have to put together the mosaics using symptoms of overtraining. And most of the related literatures in the overtraining field differentiate different kinds of symptoms, such as physiological, psychological, immunological, and biochemical symptoms. This is how we do it also. Because what we know, as a result of overtraining, the performance is decreasing. But we don't have a biomarker. We don't have anything for sure that you can measure, and then it tells you for 100% that your athlete is overtrained. So, physical symptoms are the following. I picked up some important ones, not all of them. So, naturally, decreased performance. In case of overtraining, you got coordinational problems. I think no need to explain. But not all of the coordinational problems are from overtraining. Decreased ferritin. Ferritin is an iron store in our body. It supplies iron to very important proteins which are vital, such as myoglobin or hemoglobin. So if the ferritin concentration is decreasing, it tells you in advance that anemia will happen. Anemia means loss of iron. So oxygen in our body is always bound to iron. Always. Iron binding proteins such as myoglobin, hemoglobin, or mitochondrial iron containing proteins. So this is very important. If you don't have enough iron, you got a problem with the oxygen carrying capacity, which indeed naturally going to decrease the performance. Decreased mineral absorptions. So we eat a lot of stuff. We need many of them, what we eat, especially minerals. But in case of overtraining, the absorption of these vital components is impaired. Abnormal T wave at the ECG curve, decreased resistance to loading. So the load which was easily compensated earlier cannot be compensated during the overtraining period. You feel chronic fatigue. It is very important to know what is the resting heart rate and the maximum heart rate of your athletes. And it's very important to know what is the heart rate recovery after maximal loading, 2 or 3 minutes after maximal loading. So if you know this, then in case of overtraining, you can see that the recovery is decreased. Let's see, after reaching 200 heartbeats, 2 minutes after that, in normal situation, your heart rate gets back to 120. If you are overtrained, it's still 160, as an example. So decreased heart rate recovery. But you have to know what is the normal value. Without knowing that, you cannot use these symptoms to evaluate overtraining. Decreased body mass, decreased oxygen utilization. So it means you are not able to use the uptake and oxygen very well. In case of overtraining, you have sleeping problems, which is too bad because you cannot recover when you are sleeping. You got appetite problems, overeating or undereating, appetite, and you got muscle and joint pain. You got psychological symptoms. Psychological symptoms such as depression. You are completely fed up with everything, really. Decreased self-confidence. Naturally, not every depression is associated with overtraining, but overtraining is quite often associated with depression and decreased self-confidence. You get emotional instability, you cannot really concentrate, you are not really looking forward to competition. You are fear from the competition because you don't have self-confidence, because you don't trust in yourself, knowing that something is wrong with the performance. And you are not tough. You are not tough, you cannot really work hard when you're overtrained. Overused, actually. What kind of biochemical symptoms we have? We have negative protein balance, which means that you break down more protein than you synthesize. So as a result, muscle mass is decreasing. As I told you earlier, body mass is decreasing, which is not always bad, but if this loss of body mass is associated with the loss of muscle mass, it's no question a bad thing, because the performance is going to suffer. Decreased sugar tolerance. Your body is using carbohydrate as a main energy source, especially during high intensity exercise. When you eat, your blood sugar concentration is increasing. And then you secrete insulin and you uptake the blood sugar. So this kind of process all impaired during overtraining, meaning that your liver and muscle cannot really store a sufficient amount of glycogen due to the impaired signaling pathways which are associated with sugar uptake. Very bad, because if you don't have fuel, naturally you cannot really compete. Decreased bone minerals. We just mentioned in case of physiological symptoms that the mineral absorption is decreasing during overtraining, suggesting that if overtraining is really a long-term process, then even your bone minerals will change, and then it can suggest that even your bones will be more prone to fractures. So more damage will happen. Anemia, the problem of the iron uptake and iron handling can lead to anemia, which means to be able to uptake the same amount of oxygen, if you have anemia, lower level of hemoglobin, your heart must beat more times. So it means that during overtraining, your resting heart rate is increasing, and suggesting that the adaptive range of the resting heart rate and maximum heart rate is getting smaller and smaller. And if it is happening, it means that the adaptive capacity of the muscle is decreased. And this is the case of overtraining. As I told you, we don't have a good biomarker of overtraining, but one of the best marker is cortisol level. Cortisol is a stress hormone. The concentration depends on the waving during the day. Cortisol level is high in the morning and then is decreasing. Cortisol is high during stress. Cortisol is a catabolic hormone. And the ratio between your testosterone and cortisol levels is one of the best and most accepted marker of overtraining, not a good one, but quite okay. So it means cortisol is increasing and testosterone is decreasing. So cortisol is a catabolic hormone, testosterone is an anabolic. So during overtraining, catabolism is increasing and anabolic effect is decreasing, so resulting in decreased bone, muscle mass, and body mass as well. Usually, we do not use amino acids as an energy in our body because amino acids, proteins, are designed to build up our body, not as an energy source. But in some situations, of course, we do it. And interestingly enough, glutamine as an amino acid is used by our immune system. So the third symptoms of overtraining is the alteration of our immune system. What does it mean? If you have less glutamine, your immune cells would not have enough energy to fight against diseases. So generally, the picture is that as a result of overtraining, there is an increase of all kinds of diseases, especially upper respiratory tract related diseases, such as flu. You got swelling of glands here. You could suffer from fever. You are experiencing different kinds of bacterial infections. Most of us have a herpes virus, but the herpes is pretty well suppressed by our immune system. But in case of overtraining, herpes is appearing, and generally we can say we get to decrease the level and number of lymphocytes. These cells are important to protecting our body. These cells are important part of our immune system, fighting against foreign bodies. So overall, we can say that overtraining is a very complex mechanism, affects the performance. It has a negative effect on performance. It would be really nice to know what causes. Overtraining can be, as I mentioned to you, due to lifestyle problems. It could be due to training problems. Too big loading, too short recoveries, or not good balance of these two. Extremely important to find out the cause of overtraining and then treat the overtraining. In case of treatment, I would suggest cross-training. So I would not really stop the training if I recognize that someone is overtrained. I would use different kind of physical activities, especially ball games, which could be quite different than fencing and track and field or judo. So use something else, have more fun, more joy. Naturally, the duration and the intensity of the exercise must be decreased, and give some rest to the athletes, but do some fun things. You can change the environment, going somewhere else, change your diet, also could be useful. Use some massage therapy, depending on the type of overtraining. If your athletes are suffering on overtraining which is described by increased parasympathetic tone, which means that they are very slow to do different kind of stuff, then the massage could be tough, very hard. Change, in case of shower, cold and hot shower. So some very exciting things to do as games. On the other hand, if your athletes are suffering from enhanced sympathetic drive, they are overexcited, then the massage should be very low, gentle, then the shower must be just 36, 37 degrees, not so hot, not so cold. Watch movies, get some kind of nice slowing down exercises to your athletes. Extremely important, guys. Overtraining is dangerous to the body. We don't know much at the moment about overtraining, but if you want to know much more, then I try to emphasize during this short period of lesson, go and buy some books on overtraining. Thank you very much for your attention, and this is the end of the story.